It will not be the last. The proper response is there is no amount of military presence or police presence that will protect us from one deranged individual intent on doing harm. The right response is, as the sheriff quoted, the whole people are armed. The whole people are armed and prepared to protect themselves. I'm not carrying here today, but I hope a bunch of you are. And I hope if some deranged individual comes walking across this square, you drop him real quick. That's how we become a safer society. I have said, do not fear. Be bold and courageous. Don't be foolish, because believe you me, you get one of those weapons and you hurt your fellow man through carelessness, you are going to be punished for criminal behavior, and you should. But don't be fearful. Be courageous. Get a weapon. Learn to use it. Get your family a weapon and teach them to use it. And we will all be safe. Then we will be safer. Then we will be safer. And our leadership ought to be talking about that. Private property ownership, gun ownership, state sovereignty. We've had a little discussion. Not too often in my life have I been on the front end of the curve. I didn't buy Dell stock in 1980 when I graduated high school. You know, I missed a lot of, I didn't buy Microsoft either. I missed a lot of those revolutions. I'm not usually on the front end of the curve, but the request to me to run for governor came last November. It took me about 3 months to get to that, okay, I will run. I knew right away that I didn't like the choices we were likely to have in Texas for governor. It took me about 3 months. I've said often, there have been lots of political discussions in my house over the years. Noe and I homeschooled 2 children all the way through the 12th grade and sent them both off to successful college careers. We've had a lot of political discussions over the Medina family dinner table. Mama running for governor was never one of those discussions. So I've been a little bit ahead of this curve because I'm talking about the thing that all of you started rallying for back in April when we saw those tea parties start. I was a little ahead of that curve. I was already out there kind of doing that. We had the opportunity for me to speak at 3 tea parties on April 15th. It was 4 days before Janice and Chris got married, and I was saying, please, I need time to prepare for my daughter's wedding, and I came out, and Terry Mund, who's here with me today, we traveled 22 hours that day speaking to tea parties across the state. We had Medina for Texas teams on the ground at 45 tea parties from El Paso to Beaumont and from Harlingen to DFW and all parts in between. People see in me one of you. I'm just one of you. I'm a wife and a mother and a businesswoman, and I've done a little ranching and farming in my life. I understand the value of hard work. I understand the importance of looking someone in the eye and giving them your word and not having to have a signed, sealed, multiple witnessed affidavit contract that says you're going to keep that word. And I understand the need for state sovereignty. If this union that we've created is going to work, it's a 2-part arrangement. We've got a federal government and we've got a state government, and as a state we've got some responsibilities, and we have sorely neglected our duty as a state. Thomas Jefferson said, it is the unquestionable right of the state to determine when the federal government steps outside of the Constitution. They're not going to come knocking on our door and say, hey, we're violating your rights, we just want you to know. It's our job. It's our job to step up and say, no, you will not trespass here. This is Texas to take care of. I've been saying for some months that, I don't know, maybe we ought to tell Washington, D.C. to get out of Texas agriculture. If our farmers and our ranchers want to plant and grow and sell, then they ought to be planting and growing and selling whatever they want to plant and grow and sell. In Washington, we don't need your help in agriculture in Texas. Or maybe it's energy. I don't know if you noticed, there's a little energy industry in Texas. And maybe we ought to get them out of the energy industry. And I had a congressman say to me the other day, Deborah, you might think about attacking that at the level of the EPA, because they've got their fingers in ag and energy in a major way. What if we took a state sovereignty fight and we nullified and interposed against? Would you like a governor who interposed? The sheriff talked about that. Sheriff, you're the first person that I've heard through this whole campaign mention the word interposition. I've been talking about it for months. See, Jefferson said it is the unquestionable right of the states to decide when the federal government oversteps, and the rightful remedy is nullification and interposition. That is the remedy. So we interpose against the EPA and we say, you're not enforcing those regulations on our industry. If agriculture and energy needs to be regulated in Texas, Texas will regulate agriculture and energy, and you get the EPA out of those industries in this state. You have a governor who works with your attorney general to challenge the EPA in the federal court. You have a governor who steps up with your U.S. congressional delegation. You've got some congressional candidates here today. You ought to take an opportunity to visit with them, because you learn a lot more about a man when you look him in the eye than when you read a flyer about him. Let's work with that congressional delegation and say, when you boys drop the ball and you don't get it done in Washington, we got your back. We're going to fight you at our front door. We're going to meet you at the border of Texas. You're not coming another inch into this state. Not another inch into Texas. I've gotten a little more vehement about that in the last couple of months. I thought it was going to take some time, and it will. It will take us years to eradicate that cancer of the overreaching federal government. It will take us years to get them out of all of the places that they have been allowed to trespass on. But we better get pretty vehement about drawing that line in the sand, and I think now that most of us see that nationalized health care coming, we're ready to draw that line, are we not? We're ready to draw that line and say, you're in my business in a lot more places than you ought to be, but you're not coming any further. If Texas had leadership, we'd be out there. See, we know that 11 other states have already introduced nullification in their legislators. And Arizona has already passed nullification language, and it'll be on their constitutional amendment in 2010. Where is Texas? Maybe if we were rattling some sabers in Texas saying, Washington, when you pass that, bring it on, because we're going to fight you. Maybe we check their aggression a little bit. If we help them understand, I bumped into U.S. Senator John Cornyn at the airport a couple of weeks ago, and I said, Senator, are you aware that 10 states have already pre-filed nullification language against health care? And he said, no, I'm not. I said, well, I'd encourage you to look into that. Maybe that's something the U.S. senators, conservative senators who are trying to fight this thing, maybe that's something you can use as a tool in your arsenal to convince some of those state senators that are on the fence, U.S. senators that are on the fence on this thing. Maybe if they understood that their state legislature was nullifying this action, maybe they'd help you kill it in Washington, D.C. But if y'all don't get it done, I'm going to fight you here in Texas. We need to be calling Attorney General Abbott's office. I'm going to encourage you to do that Monday morning. Because if that bill gets through the U.S. Senate, the president will sign it. And when the president signs it, the IRS will start taxing you on January 1st, 2010. You don't get any benefit till 2013. But you will pay taxes. Every one of us will pay taxes for every month that we don't have an acceptable insurance policy beginning on January 1st, 2010. Every month or portion of a month that you don't have an acceptable insurance, you will pay additional income tax. And if any of you here have an income in excess of $500,000, you will pay 2.5% surcharge. We're not going to call it a tax. We're going to call it a surcharge on your income. We need the Texas Attorney General to file an injunction in federal court to stop the IRS. And that needs to happen.